Ghosts, angels, demons, fairies, vampires, werewolves. All those stories you heard as a kid, all those stories mom and dad said weren't true. For most people, that's all they are, myth, legend. Occasionally people find there is something out there in the dark. Many years ago I trained with the late Lou Gentili, one of the best known demonologists in the United States. When he died, he asked I continue his legacy. I've been continuing investigations since his death, but I also wanted to bring back his efforts to educate the public about what's really out there. Join us for a brand new YouTube series, The Paranormal Encyclopedia, with me, your host, Kevin Mears, demonologist and paranormal investigator, while we investigate what really goes bump in the night.
So, before you think this is all about doom and gloom, well, first of all, it is. Second of all, that is not entirely our purpose. We're here to entertain, we're here to tell you, and you're probably wondering who the hell I am. I'm not the demonologist. It's my job to ask questions, it's my job to be the skeptic. I've got some background in history, particularly about witches, but I'm here to hypothetically be your voice. I'm Drew. Welcome to Paranormal Encyclopedia.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Paranormal Encyclopedia. We're your hosts, Kevin Mears, the demonologist, and
Drew, the other guy.
the other guy. So we've talked about black magic. We've talked about Satanism. It's going to probably wind up being kind of controversial, but tonight we're going to tackle the New Age, not the New Age movement. Sorry, the Neo Pagan movement.
Let's just do these. You can't see what I'm doing, Kevin, because you don't have the video feed, but I do.
Yep.
I was pulling out my necklaces.
Gotcha.
So, alright. Now,
there's at least two provisos we need to make here, I think, before we actually get started. One being, yeah, you're pagan. So it's not just me, the Christian, saying paganism is evil. Second of all, we're not talking about the value. This is not a value judgment on the spiritual beliefs of the neo-pagan movement, nor should it be taken as such. We'll get into why in a bit, but things like how old a religion is doesn't necessarily make it worthless. Christianity was a radical idea an itinerant carpenter had about 2,000 years ago at one time. Everything starts somewhere.
yeah, and there's a bunch of crazy people performing black magic and eating babies. Things these kids are into.
Tell me about it. Oh, yeah. But, okay, so where shall we start with neo-paganism?
I feel like we should just do a shout out to Crowley again.
Oh, yes, because he's too relevant not to bring him up.
Yeah. So, you want to get into that one and his, how he leads into?
Okay, so for like the two people in our audience who have no idea who we're talking about, if there's two of you, maybe there's only one. Aleister Crowley was a magician of the early 20th century. He was, needless to say, extremely colorful figure who openly summoned demons, was a admitted drug, and other. Oh, true. You can't pin him down to just one thing, even on any count, including his sexuality. He pioneered Thelema, or essentially, I think he invented Thelema, which was a pseudo-magical, pseudo-religious movement that, among other things, it had a lot of strange ideas and obsessions, and it was a mix of Christianity, some paganism, some ceremonial magic,
Probably also some elements of Taoism and Hinduism.
Yeah, so definitely, actually, a number of elements of Eastern mysticism, like Taoism and Hinduism, probably, I think, some Buddhism as well.
Knowing that he translated books. Well, translates a
strong term.
Paraphrased books. Like the Tao Te Ching. So how does this relate? Alright. So,
especially since most modern pagans hate Crowley, in my experience. So we probably annoyed a bunch of people just by bringing him up.
Some enjoy him as that guy. But he is hugely important. He was at the forefront of he was the tail end of the 19th century, early 20th century spiritualism occultism movement. He's the transitionary figure between those movements and modern spiritualism and Neo Paganism. But his actual contributions are debatable. How far they go. They're definitely there. 100%, and I'll get into why it's 100%, but how far they go is debatable.
He also, I think, deserves credit because, I mean, spiritualism certainly was a big thing in the 1800s. We're going to have probably... this is going to be another one of those... We're going to do an episode on this down the pipe because it's way too large a subject to cover now.
Oh my god, occultism is its own, too.
Yeah. But Crowley was a very important popularizer, I would think, because he did a lot of very public rituals. I mean, there were groups like the Golden Dawn, which he was a member of before they threw him out, and the OTO, which he was also a member of. But he was the one who came out into the public and said, "Hi, I summon demons. I do magic. I am the great beast 666. I am the wickedest man alive." These are all things he said about himself.
And, of course, what that immediately led to is England providing him a job offer. the country of England as, can you do spiritual reconnaissance? Can you cast spells on the Germans for us?
I thought there was some debate over whether that really happened or not.
He definitely got an offer, but it was probably not actually for those purposes. It was probably more a matter of some kind of... They had a lot of public figures that traveled as double agents, or like secret agents. They would just, alright, you're going to do these things while you're there, and report back to us.
I think we need to move on, or we're going, because Crowley is an episode in and of himself.
We should probably edit out some of that. That probably went too deep. As one does.
Yeah, we'll look over it and come back to it.
So, how does he relate? Well, one of his students was Gardner. Gerald Gardner, right?
Yep, Gerald Gardner would be the one you're thinking of.
I was just making sure I got the name right, because occasionally I just dyslexia mix up names.
I know, but no, you've got the name right.
Yeah, Gerald Gardner. Gerald Gardner was originally a student of Crowley. Which...
Yep.
He picked up some things from Crowley. He says... What was that? About to sneeze? Okay. Better now. He says that he didn't really keep anything from Crowley, except for little bits here and there. But he wound up forming a more grassrootsy kind of magic. More folk magic.
Which brings us to Wicca.
He is the founder of Wicca. He is the one who started Wicca is an ancient religion. It was practiced. We were the ones who were persecuted by the Christians during the burning times. Millions of our people were killed. That is wrong on very, very many levels.
There's actually one other figure that factors in there, who's a little bit older, that started some of those ideas. Margaret Murray.
Yes. but he republished and popularized.
True, but it's worth mentioning that
It wasn't his original idea, no.
Yeah.
I
want to say she was an anthropologist, or a... I don't know, I always confuse those.
But he did claim lineage to those witches.
A family coven of witches had initiated him, I believe was his claim of the history.
Yep, which brings us to the term witches. That's why. That's why Wiccans are called witches, is because that's what they thought. Because he tied their lineage to the witches of the 15th to 18th centuries, which I'd say probably 49 times out of 50 were Christians.
Yep.
So... Oh, and the other... It's not saying that other 1 out of 50 is a pagan. I'm saying 1 out of 50 is not Christian. Some were Jews, some were Muslims, some were atheists. And some were just crazy.
Yeah, I was going to say, 1 or 2 probably actually thought they were witches.
True, but that is still just a Christian heresy.
Yeah.
So, that's your basis on their idea of witches. But what it wound up actually being was a lot of, and I wouldn't say necessarily folk magic, but folk superstition from England. It was a lot of old midwives' cures. Oh, you take this herb for this purpose. And then nudity. He liked being naked a lot. He liked people around him being naked a lot, which is Crowley's biggest complaint with Gardner. Why are you always naked? Stop it.
Which, from the man who at least popularized, if not invented, sex magic, is really ironic.
Yeah. Yeah, it is funny that is his biggest complaint. But there it was. So, alright. You have English folk magic, but any of the Wiccans watching this at this point in time are probably going, well, that's not what it is. Hold on, we're getting there. So, you've got Wicca. It also picks up some in Britain. That is totally its own thing at this point in time. Guess what? This is in the 1950s that it starts gaining a little bit of popularity. And then it gets to the 60s, and it actually built up to a... I feel like cult is too strong of a word, but it was a cult. Just for lack of other words that mean small religious group.
And we're going to be doing an episode specifically dedicated to the subject soonish, I think, but to clarify, the word cult in a sociological religious studies sense usually means a new religious movement that is different from societal norm. There is no, in the proper definitions of the word, there is no negative connotation in calling something a cult.
Also, when a cult becomes a religion is up for debate. Where that line exactly is, that is one of the most debated topics.
Every religion in the world fits most definitions of a cult at some point in its history, if not several.
Yeah. So, it's a cult, but not the crazy Jonestown style.
No, not at all.
So we get to the 60s. You guys know what was going on in the 60s. Hippies.
Yep.
There's a spiritualist movement in the United States. They had tried to bring in ideas from all over the world. So you wind up with Buddhism became really big in the United States amongst these groups. You see Native American religion becoming big in these groups. And then you see Wicca pop up. Fun thing about Wicca. Define Wicca.
That's a good question.
You can't necessarily pin it down. It's different for a lot of different people.
There's nearly a different form of Wicca for every person who practices it. Not quite, but close.
There might be. I mean, you got covens, and covens generally agree, but not necessarily. Not to mention, certain people have went from one version to another, so you have two from one person. Periodically.
Broadly, as far as I can tell, and I can probably be completely wrong on this, broadly Wicca seems to be a religion that venerates a god and a goddess.
Frequently. There are a couple concepts that you see through. Belief in magic.
Though not all Wiccans practice magic.
Practicing is a different issue, but belief in magic is one. The general rule of harm none. Do as you will, but harm none is the frequent version, but sometimes it is just harm none. Slight Jainist spin on it, because once again, lots of Eastern religions were brought in.
Yep.
And you went with a hybridized version. I'm blanking on it. There was one specific couple that actually brought Wicca to the U.S., and it is bothering me because I wrote a paper on these guys. You think I'd remember something I wrote 20 pages on? Nah. Terrible things. So.
Well, good internet to the rescue.
Yeah. So this one couple brings Wicca over to the U.S. effectively. There are a couple other people practicing, but they wound up actually forming their own coven in the U.S. But they are heavily influenced by Buddhism. Thus, you wind up with a lot of the modern Wiccan meditations, and the idea of obtaining kind of an inner peace through meditations. And your magic is very thought-based. I don't know if that's not the right word, but it's a little bit different than use of herbs and incantations. It's the same principle, but a little different. If that makes any sense. Once again, you also see a rise in Native American traditions. Take, for example, sage. You still with us?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. I'm trying to dig up the names. And you got it covered.
Sage is one of the Native American traditions that was added in.
That gets borrowed relentlessly these days.
Yep. You also see some elements of shamanism enter as well. Spirit guides, being animals, being the first one that comes to mind as far as Native American influences on modern Wicca. But once again, this is small, really small. Up until you hit first the 80s, where it just started getting a lot of attention. Funny thing about people reacting to Wiccans is it brings more attention to Wicca. People got really angry, called them Satanists, believed that they were trying to kill their children, freaked out, people got shot at. It was actually pretty bad. That shooting I'm referring to is Texas. Where else? And the funny thing is, the hardcore Christian reaction to them led to more people turning away from Christianity to Wicca. And then the internet happened. And suddenly, boom, massive growth. Because suddenly all these ideas were able to be posted. That had a couple of different effects. One, it got a lot more popular. No longer did you have to kind of like really search, travel 3 states, and go to a library to find one of their books.
You could just order it off of Amazon.
Or, look it up. It's all online. You just type it in and boop, boom, there you go. Wiccan sites looking with the exact thing you're looking for. Also, the internet led to some degree of homogenization. Very loosely, but you see a lot of different covens talking to each other more in depth. There was conversation previously, but it wasn't quite there. You see people practicing or sharing their spells more often. It's easier to. You can just, boom, email, done. You see people sharing their ideas a lot more. But it also allowed other people in who weren't previously considering themselves Wiccan. So it simultaneously made everything a little bit more similar and also a lot different. You didn't necessarily have little tiny covens anymore. You had a bunch of individual practitioners all talking through a website. So that's a very brief rundown of Wicca.
Which isn't the only form of Neo Paganism in the world.
No, that's just the biggest.
Most popular in the U.S. by far.
There's a reason I like to start with that one, despite being a Norse pagan. You wind up with two different sects of Norse paganism. Odinism, not going to get into that one. Just generally, there are Odinists who worship Odin and don't actually know what the Odinists stand for, and then there are racists. If you look into the writings of Odinism, it talks about racial superiority, which I'm sorry I have yet to see any support in the Eddas for this. I get nothing.
Racists will try and use anything to justify their racism.
Yeah, basically.
That's just a reality of human nature.
And then you've got the Astaru, which I'm going to piss off a lot of people here. It is an offshoot of Wicca. It was two soldiers in Iceland who were previously Wiccan going, this doesn't fit. We can't do this harm none stuff as soldiers. We need something that's more militaristic. And they did some research. Didn't take them very long. They're in Iceland. And went, hey, what about this? Your proof that it's still an offshoot of Wicca? Poetic Edda in the Havamal states one should not offer sacrifice too often. You're not supposed to pray to the gods all the time. But a lot of Astaru groups meet monthly for that purpose. They're monthly blots. That's not the way it used to be practiced. It is, not to mention, if you look at the general rituals, they're not really bound to the lunar calendar. They're bound to harvesting, setting sail, coming back. However, Astaru frequently practice their blots on full moons, which is, surprise, surprise, Wiccan.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying that's where the origin comes from. That's where that element of neo-paganism came from.
And I think our overarching point here isn't that any of these beliefs are wrong. That's making a value judgment. I don't like to make value judgments about other people's religious beliefs.
Yeah, no.
But there's a question of what's historically verifiable and what people think is historically accurate.
Yeah, no, I'm not judging the religion. I'm just stating it is not a reconstructionist religion. It does not perfectly adhere to what the old texts say, given there are certain limitations, like you can't offer a human sacrifice anymore. That's considered illegal.
Yeah.
Similarly, you're not going to be able to run out into a battlefield swinging an axe. That's not viable anymore.
You can, it's just what's going to happen is called boom.
There's that. I mean, yeah, you can go out into battle, but you don't have as many soldiers now as you used to. You don't have to go out raiding. It's not a necessity. We have much better production these days.
Yep.
So, a lot of elements would obviously need to change. Even if you do join the military, you can't go raiding. I mean, I guess you can, but it's called a court-martial.
Yeah. War crimes.
But yeah, so elements had to change. So what should we get into next?
The other major faction, well, I think it's worthwhile touching on the concept, at least, of Reconstructionism, and what that means in case somebody doesn't know how that differentiates.
Okay, so Reconstructionists will try and find any historical document they can on how the religion was practiced. They will cross-reference that with modern practices that have been adopted frequently by Christianity, since the Neo Pagan movement is largely European. It is not strictly European, but it is largely European. So they'll look at areas where the religion was originally practiced, and they'll look at a lot of the holidays and whatnot and try and strip Christianity back away from it, using historic texts as a guideline, filling in the gaps with modern practices. Take, for example, let's say there's a harvest ceremony that is attributed to a saint. So, if we remove the saint, what deity would fit that? Are the practices of prayer and offering strictly Christian? No. Is there a historical record of this ceremony anywhere? Yes. Okay. We'll work off that. That will be what we're going to be doing.
And from a historical standpoint, a number of those Catholic saints, even the Catholic Church now acknowledges, never existed.
Yeah, a fair number of them were gods.
Yeah.
Pagan gods. Given a lot of devils were also pagan gods.
Yeah, which is there's something worth mentioning, I think, because people think a lot about how Christians tend to demonize pagan gods, and it's fair, we do. We also turn them into saints, but we do turn them into demons. But the reality is, cultures have been turning each other's gods into demons for millennia.
Given it exists more in the sort of religion, Hinduistic religions and monotheistic religions will do it far more often than polytheistic religions. Why? Anything that says this is the king of gods, this is the head of the gods, this is the god of gods, will take offense much faster to the idea of these are our gods and they're completely different than a polytheist who goes, these are our gods, those are your gods, we don't really care, your gods do not infringe on our god's power. So
which is true, but polytheists do it as well. I mean,
it's just far less frequent. More frequently than not, you'll see an adaptation, and they'll create a new deity based off of that. Good example, if you look at the Slavic deities, Perun, or if you go with one of the Slavic names, or Prokunas, if you go with the Lithuanian name, was a cross between Thor and Odin. If you look at Roman religion, the number of Gaelic and Egyptian gods they had adopted is phenomenal. Given not all of them made it in. Some of them were then considered really evil. But you can have an evil god.
Yes. I was thinking particularly, there's a theory I've seen suggested from time to time that the classic story from the Epic of Gilgamesh of the battle between Marduk and Tiamat. There's a possibility Tiamat was it's a story of two actual real warring city-states.
Although, both of those places had a principal deity.
Yeah.
That's the key difference. If you have strictly one deity to your place that you worship, you're going to... any other deity then threatens them to some degree.
Especially any other supreme deity.
That's where I was trying to get at. It's not saying it's wrong. It's just that tended to be the case.
Well, I think what it comes down to is the relationship between, and I think we can both agree on this, the relationship between varying religions and how they treat each other's deities is complicated. It's not necessarily as cut and dried as one demonizes the other.
It's just...
Case in point,
yeah, no.
St. Christopher and St. Bridget were both pagan gods at one point. And how many Catholics out there still wear St. Christopher medals? But no, there's no evidence St. Christopher ever existed, and a number of the stories about him are stories they used to tell about Hermes.
Given there is a strong Catholic reasoning for this, it's an sometimes they'll be, it was an angel that intercedes on behalf of people, and that was their god. It's so close to God, they might have as well have been worshiping God. That was also one of the ways they used to convert people, going, oh, no, you weren't wrong. Well, you were, but you were really, really close. People tend to like to hear that they're not instantly...
You're not worshipping the devil, you're worshipping an angel that serves the true God.
Yeah, they just, for any Christians who have tried to convert people, how effective is telling them that they worship the devil? Do they listen to anything you say after that?
I don't know. I've counseled people in an attempt to help them convert at their request, but I don't usually use the "you're worshiping the devil" tactic.
Yeah,
I can't.
From personal experience, every pagan I know who has heard that line has only gotten really ticked off.
Yeah.
Especially people who go, I don't even believe in a devil. What the hell?
It's like, how am I worshipping something I don't acknowledge the existence of?
Like a fair number of Wiccans do not actually acknowledge a Satan figure. Once again. But,
which doesn't bother me so much as the fact a fair number of neo-pagans don't acknowledge the existence of spiritual evil. Which is not historically accurate.
Yeah, but once again, difference between Reconstructionist and...
Yeah. I know, it just pet peeve of mine is I get the desire to distance yourself from from the idea of being Satan worshippers, because you're not. They're not. There are a few very weird, obscure... there is a form of neo-paganism called Luciferianism, but even they're suggesting that the biblical figure that's called Lucifer was originally a pagan god that got demonized by the Christians. They're not worshipping Lucifer in the sense that Christians think of Lucifer. Sometimes. Because unfortunately that's its own confusing mess.
Yeah, once again, we're getting closer to the Satanism aspect of it. Where some people have worshipped devils or demons as their original pagan god form. But, so, let's see, what other...
The other major neo-pagan movement I can think of is Druidism.
True, that one was developed simultaneous to Wicca, but entirely distinct. That one is much more of a Reconstructionist movement in Britain, and then it moved to other places. you see a lot of old Celtic practices, or at least modern interpretations of old Celtic practices in it.
There's remnants of pagan practices throughout Europe, for that matter, which is the other thing to keep in mind. I mean, in England, for example, it's usually people think that the offerings that are still left in some parts of milk and honey to the fairies is holdovers of older pagan beliefs.
True, and honestly, I believe that. The way that the conversion of Europe worked is what lent itself to a lot of remnants of paganism, which that is entirely its own episode.
Yes.
I can go.
That's definitely a related concept.
True, but I can totally go on that topic alone.
So something else to look forward to coming down the pipe.
Yes.
If our listeners haven't figured it out yet, we're not even close to running out of topics here. We've barely scratched the surface.
Especially not if we're going to talk about historic paganism in the church.
Which I think we should.
That is a thing I can talk about for a long time.
And we will, just not tonight, because, let's see, we're running 42 minutes already.
I think we mostly covered everything. Oh, Neo Shamanism. This is something I'm not overly familiar with.
I don't know a whole lot about it either.
I know it exists. I know there's plenty of variations on it. There are North American, Native American ideas, but that is, most of those ones date back to the 19th century in some degree. There's
But there are actual ancient traditions of shamanism practiced all over the world, including in the United States.
Oh, I was just going with neo-shamanism.
Yeah.
To distinguish it.
Which is, it's where it starts to get fuzzy, though, because it's like,
yeah, because
there's the neo-shamanism thing, and then there's actual shamanism, and then...
I was just going to go with, we're going to talk about neo-paganism.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about neo-shamanism, which is basically... the main one I can think of is people taking old rituals, a lot of which have been adopted into voodoo, and trying to reconstruct them, removing the elements of Christianity entirely. So
you also get people, European, Caucasians, I should say, just as a general group, adopting aspects of shamanic belief.
Frequently, that one dates more to the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
How a lot of Native American beliefs were tied in. Some voodoo and hoodoo was also tied in to the American development of neo-paganism. Basically, it's a hodgepodge. It's a mess. You ask one person, you'll get 10 answers.
If you're lucky. You may get more.
Yeah, you might.
But I think that covers everything reasonably well. I mean, I'd love to go into greater depth about neo-shamanism, but neither of us really has the knowledge to do that.
No.
Maybe we could find a good guest on the subject.
Other thing to note, in case anyone was curious, I'm a Reconstructionist. Just so you guys know what standpoint I'm coming from. You know my bias. Straight out with it.
And I will say, for the record, as a demonologist, I've actually worked with Wiccans on cases before. I've worked with a couple of different religious groups, but particularly I've had a couple of good friends who are Wiccans. So again, this isn't a value judgment on anyone's religious beliefs. It's a question of history. And I will say, certainly...
And anthropology.
And anthropology, absolutely true. If anyone has verifiable historical documentation to say that we're wrong, kevinm.paranormalencyclopedia@gmail.com. Email me. Go to our website, paranormalencyclopedia.webs.com. Put it on our message board. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you think we're wrong. If you've got some good sources, if you've got a good guest out there that we could put on, we'll look into putting them on.
Just as a little thing here, if you are claiming, though, that Wicca is connected to the witches of the Burning Times, I will forward you sources for you to read.
Yes. If you're going to argue that, have your ducks in a row, because we've got ours in a row.
Yeah, that's, that one has extensively been written on to disprove.
Yeah.
So, just warning in advance, you will find sources that say yes, but there are more that say no.
So I think that about wraps it up. I want to give people a couple of heads up on what's coming, because we've got some very exciting things actually in store. So next week we're going to have, dang it, what was her name? We'll leave it in a nice pause so Misha can edit.
Ruh-roh.
I'm going to my email so I can check, because I did get the email from her. Okay, here we go. So, okay, we are going to have... dang it, where'd the... Debbie Chestnut on next week. She's a paranormal investigator who's been seeing spirits since childhood. She's written a whole bunch of books on the subject, including a number about negative spirits. Drew, you still there?
Yes.
Okay, the sound got a little weird.
Yeah.
Particularly, she's got Something Wicked, a ghost hunter explores negative spirits, that's coming out in July. She also did a book called Stalking Shadows, the most chilling experiences of a paranormal investigator. Is Your House Haunted? Poltergeist, Ghosts, or Bad Wiring? So there's a whole bunch of books she's got out. She's been kind enough to agree to come on. We're going to schedule that for next week. And here's the big one, because we finally broke the 40 subscriber mark, so I'm going to announce what we're doing for 50. When we hit 50 subscribers, we're going to do a live show. We're going to set up a chat room. We're going to have you be able to like live comments on YouTube, because we'll be doing a live stream. And you guys will actually be able to directly interact with us and ask us questions. We're going to try and work out some extra cool things there to see what we can figure out for you. But at the very least, you're going to get a live show. The two of us know... Well, we don't use scripts to begin with, but off the cuff, see where it goes. It can get a little crazy. And no editing to save our backsides.
My script. It's wonderful.
But we need those 50 subscribers. Seriously, folks, 7 people. 7 people and you get the live show.
I'll even wear a silly hat.
We'll both wear silly hats.
I'll wear a silly hat on top of a silly hat.
I'll wear a silly hat with feathers. Because I have one in the car. There you go. I'll one-up it. I'll wear a silly hat with feathers and my 12-foot-long Doctor Who scarf. Live. But you gotta give us the last 7 subscribers. Keep in mind as well, we get to 100, we've got something else in store for you guys. I'll probably announce that around the 75 subscriber mark, just to give you guys a tease and encourage you. So please, like, comment, subscribe, share this with your friends. Annoy the heck out of everyone and get them to subscribe. I'm sure all my friends who are watching this are already sick of the number of times I've posted in the last week. Please subscribe. I'm not sorry.
Now I remember the thing that I thought we should do.
Which is?
I think we should do our case reflection.
Oh, yes.
Which I'm doing this while we're still in the show, so that way we have a teaser for people. We went on a case.
Yes, I brought Drew out on his first case.
We will tell you about said case later.
Yep. And we're not just being evil teases. We've got a little more cleanup work to do on that case before we discuss it anyway. It'll be better to have the whole thing to talk about instead of just half of it.
Also, I am being a jerk and leaving it intentionally vague. It's more fun that way.
But okay, I think that's about it for tonight.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. We'll see you
Or
next time.
morning, whatever time it is you decide to watch it. I mean, it's YouTube.
Yeah, but we're videotaping it at night, so night. Good night.
Good night. And hit the stop recordings buttons. So,
This is going to be a quick teaser before the main episode about Neo Paganism, folks. So we won't be doing our usual introduction. We just have to acknowledge this here is our 25th episode.
I don't have confetti, I have caps.
What was that?
I threw caps because I don't have confetti. I can also throw nails.
But yeah, I am super stoked about the fact that we played 25. As you're going to see from all of the references to other topics, we're not even close to done, folks, so hang in there. We got much more to come. And I want to thank all our 43 subscribers and our views, which still stick to about 150 plus a month, for hanging in there with us. So hopefully everybody's enjoying themselves
Hopefully.
as much as we are. You have anything you want to say?
Yes. Nails are not a viable substitute for confetti.
No, they're not.
And thank you all for watching. Now
Have a good night, gang.
Now on to our main performance.
Oh wait, don't log out yet. We got a whole episode to go.
Rewind the good night. We'll do that later.
Yeah. And now it's time for the show. Do.
Go.